Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I'm just drinking some coffee and I came across a news story that I'll cover for you guys. And of course I'm going to get asked on stuff like this because I do know a lot about beating and drug testing in sports, and it's something I used to do for money, was help athletes do this. Like at one time I was working with up to a dozen university athletes who were subject to random testing and getting them through it. So what we see here is with Chael Sonnen, he's obviously been popped twice now in the UFC, and I've had people are asking me what in the hell happened, how did he get caught, what's going on. Now, I believe his original story that when the UFC banned TRT, he has to go through a post-cycle therapy if he wants to have any chance of getting his production up to normal. And the 3 drugs that he was popped for are very consistent with that. Like, that actually matches his story. He actually claims he did have prescriptions from a doctor, and there are a lot of doctors who will prescribe that combination of 3 drugs specifically for that purpose, and that is actually a really good medical reason to be on those drugs. That's not BS, that is legitimate. He was on HCG, which is human chorionic gonadotrophin. He was on anastrozole, which is, street name is called ADEX. It is an aromatase inhibitor, so it blocks the production of estrogen by blocking the aromatase enzyme, but it also boosts testosterone production a bit. It's actually, ADEX is probably 10 times stronger of a test booster than any test booster over the counter. So is HCG, but they do them through separate pathways. And then the 3rd drug added to the mix was clomiphene citrate, which he also tested positive for. And again, some of those you got to be tested pretty close. You got to literally be on those drugs to be caught. That's not something they can pop you 2 weeks for after you come off of them. I think the life is something like 7 to 10 days on any of those after you come off of them to get caught. But the clomiphene citrate is also called Clomid. It is a SERM, which is a selective estrogen receptor modulator. And people don't know what that means. That means it binds to and activates estrogen in some receptors in the body, and it blocks estrogen in others. Things like breast tissue, some fat tissue, things like that, but it activates estrogen receptors in the brain, the liver, things like that. But activating some of this in the brain is, of course, going to affect testosterone levels. It will actually increase testosterone production. Clomid is actually a very strong testosterone booster. All 3 of these are pharmaceutical grade test boosters, and they help try to get your production back online. So he was later, not that much later either, and I'll link the story down below. You guys can find videos of his interviews of him talking about the original one. But the news came out last night that he was popped for EPO and HGH. Now, the fact that he got popped kind of says that he's not necessarily that smart. He didn't have the best advice on how to do this, or they were really, really going after him hard, trying to single him out, because it is very, very difficult to get popped for HGH. Now, if I personally was a competitive athlete and I was coming off all anabolics, or I was secretly slipping in enough anabolics that are undetectable to maybe give me spikes in testosterone and then push me down to the normal level most of the day when I would be tested, and there are ways to do that, I would still probably go this route. And I think what he chose to use as an athlete is ideal, and this is actually how modern sports work. Most modern athletes who are randomly tested don't use that many anabolic steroids. They keep the doses much, much lower than your average gym rat. Even the Lance Armstrong types. And guys his size, this is not a big guy. He doesn't need massive amounts of mass. He needs just a little extra edge from the androgens. So he's going to use low amounts of steroids anyways. The big winners are HGH and peptides, and that's because they help more with overall body composition. They strengthen the connective tissue, joints. They help you keep the gains from the steroids, so when you're off the steroids, you can keep all of your gains from these. They increase satellite cell proliferation so that when you do go back and use small amounts of gear, you get a more exaggerated effect. In fact, I've known NFL players who use a lot less total testosterone than half the guys at your gym who use steroids, just at your little local gym. They lose lower amounts, but they abuse HGH and peptides. Or the ones I always knew was HGH, now peptides are coming in. And that's because HGH can do those things, and it massively enhances recovery just as much as anabolics do, but it is so hard to detect, and the side effects tend to be lower in a lot of ways. But it's very difficult to detect. And so him getting caught for that tells me that he chose his injection protocol incorrectly. He chose the standard bodybuilder type injection protocol, which if you're going to be randomly tested during the daytime, if you're going to get randomly tested in the morning at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., that is not a very, he messed up. Because usually to catch you for HGH, they've got to get you within somewhere between 2 and 4 hours of the injection most of the time to actually catch you. So if it's been 8 hours since you injected, you're going to pass your test of flying colors. If it was me in his situation, I would probably wake up and pin at 2 a.m. or I would pin at about right before bed, 10, 11 o'clock at night before bed, or pin it at 2 a.m. Get up in the middle of the night, set an alarm, pin your HGH. You will pass every drug test of flying colors. He didn't do that, apparently, because they did catch him. I don't know what time they caught him, but it was within a few hours of his injection or they wouldn't have caught him. Now, the other thing that he was popped for this time was EPO, which boosts red blood cell count. EPO, if a lot of guys use anabolics, particularly testosterone and things, to massively increase endurance, and they actually are very good at that. Some anabolics will kill your endurance, like Trenbolone, like just destroy it. But testosterone used in moderation will enhance endurance through the same pathway that EPO does, but EPO is better at it without all the anabolic effects. So if you wanted to increase stamina, which he needs as a UFC fighter, that's useful to have, especially if you're going to fight through multiple rounds. If you're not going to just knock somebody out in round one, it becomes very helpful. Get that red blood cell count way up, just like anabolics will do. So to me, that suggests that he really was off of the anabolics and was just running HGH and EPO, would be my prediction of what actually happened here. But the EPO can be a little harder to mask. I'm not going to try to get into protocols for that. But the point is, I think this is a case of he really had come off all the testosterone and he was trying to slip through drugs to at least maintain everything that he had until he could find a way to slip gear in again, which most of the guys he's competing against are all on gear, let's be honest here. The drug testing isn't that good, and he got singled out and they really aggressively went after him on testing. Or else they wouldn't have caught him with the HGH. But had he been a little bit smarter with it, he still could have passed. I just don't think that he realized they were coming after him as aggressively as they did, which also suggests that they aren't normally very aggressive in testing the UFC. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me get another shot of this coffee first.